In this episode, there will be some sensitive themes and possibly strong language used. We advise if you have children to tune back in some other time. Otherwise, just be prepared for some sensitive topics, and we hope you enjoy the show. You're listening to the Whole Church Podcast, a proud member of the Anazal Podcast Network. Our efforts to educate and unite the church are made possible thanks to our sponsors on Patreon, Captivate, and Apple Podcast. You could join them on one of those networks, or you can support the show by making a one-time tip on our Captivate website down below in the show's description. 2 Timothy 3, 1-7 in the New American Standard Bible. But realize this, that in the last days difficult times will come. For men will be lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, arrogant, revilers, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, unloving, irreconcilable, malicious, gossips, without self-control, brutal, haters of good, treacherous, reckless, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, holding to a form of godliness, although they have denied its power. Avoid such men as these, for among them are those who enter into households and captivate weak women, weighed down with sins, led on by various impulses, always learning, and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. In this pericope of Scripture, a wild pericope of Scripture, St. Paul just finished telling Timothy how different people or different vessels are going to be sanctified for use by God. After this section, he goes on to tell Timothy about the importance of staying strong, preaching the gospel to everyone. Pastor Will Rose, how might this morning about the last days tie into these ideas of who God's going to use and the need to preach the gospel to everyone?
Yeah, I guess when I hear this passage, a couple things go to mind. One is like, it's Timothy. So did Paul write this? Was it somebody else? I don't know. And then like the translation where just men, or can we use like inclusive language there? There's a couple thoughts come to mind. But what I also think about how every generation goes through challenging and difficult times. And so, of course, this particular epistle written to a community, they're thinking that they're in the last times, that this is it. Look at all that's going around us, the debauchery, the challenges, the hard times that are around them. They're like, this is the last time. So I think every generation has its challenges and thinks that they're in the last times. But yeah, I think you can take this to heart and be like, yeah, this is a cautionary tale to stay focused on what is true and what is Christ-like, rather than the world's problems around you.
Yeah, I like that. Hey guys, welcome to the Whole Church Podcast, possibly your favorite church unity podcast. It's cool if it's not. We really don't hold grudges, usually. I am Joshua Knoll, here to introduce everyone. That's basically it. I'm here with the God of Thunders, God of Mike. Thor sits home and listens to podcasts about the one and only Ryan Doze. How's it going, Ryan?
It's going good, man.
Yeah.
I love the idea of a fictional character listening to me talk about them.
It's my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah, it's no, like that idea in and of itself is thrilling, and I appreciate you for throwing it out there at all.
I appreciate you for being here, and I appreciate the one and only Magic Head, aspiring beach bum, but is too busy pastoring. The one and only our favorite pastor, Will Rose. How's this going?
Just got out of the water. Aloha.
Yeah. Also just got back from Hawaii, which is super cool. We're also here with one of my favorite scholars, one of my favorite theologies podcast that involves theology and drinking, which I've clearly started already because I can't get words straight. The one and only Dr. Leah Robinson. How's it going?
It's going great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. And Will, women can't be used because we're too weak-willed.
I know.
We're being led astray.
Yeah, I thought the book made that
brutal.
Yeah. First and Second Timothy.
Yeah.
Anytime Stuart tells me I have to
Timothy's
go to work, I'm just going to say I'm too weak-willed. I can't do it.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
Don't put me in public. Don't put me in public. Too weak.
Yeah. Will Rose is the pastor of Holy Trinity Lutheran Church in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Leah Robinson is the author of a couple different theology books. We have Bad Theology, Oppression in the Name of God, as well as Bad Theology in a Time of COVID. She's also a professor of practical theology and other stuff. Lots of theology stuff with Leah. Also, Ryan Doze is the host of Across the Bifrost, everybody's favorite Marvel Thor comics podcast. If you want to know more about Marvel's Thor, go over there, check it out. The links to the books and this podcast can be down below. Pastor Will, he's part of the homily. That's a podcast that's just his homily. I say each week, not really. And he's also one of the hosts of Systematic Geekology. So be sure to check all of that out in the show notes as well. And one who's never been accused of weak. The one who, if you're listening on YouTube, you might understand this a little bit more, who is the Lord of time, of temporal space, the one whom considers Doctor Who a bad mockery of his presence. Your favorite podcast host, TJ, Tiberius One Blackwell. How's it going?
Good.
Yeah. And of course, we're here. We have a lot of people. We have a lot of fun today. We're already goofing off and having fun. And we're here to talk about this something weird for this podcast, for the whole church podcast. It's kind of weird, but we're going to talk about sci-fi. We're going to talk about horror. And we're going to talk about how these things relate to eschatology and the Bible's version of end times and, apocalyptic literature kind of stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun. The main reason we are doing this is because there are a lot of connections to why these type of stories are told and the kind of disagreements fans have that are really similar to the kind of disagreements some scholars have around the same kind of stuff. So we're going to get into that. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. And, this is probably going to be cross-posted to Systematic Geekology. And we're going to talk a lot about how Theology Beer Camp, because this is going to be really similar to some of the stuff we do over there. It's going to be a fun time.
Yeah. So if you're interested in us, them, if you like what you're hearing now, you should check out the Honest Out Podcast Network website. The link is below for us and shows like ours. And if you're already listening on the YouTube channel, please hit like and subscribe. Click the bell so you know that when our videos go up, it's time to go watch one.
Yeah.
Ding, ding.
So true.
Ding,
so true.
Ding.
And of course, you all know we do like to start with a holy sacrament of silliness, because you can't be divided when you're being a silly, as I like to be. I was going to do one related, and for some reason I came up with something. I mean, a third of it's partially related, I guess. Guys, I'm silly. This is what happens. Today's question, TJ and Islands first, give you guys time to think about it. Who would win in a game of 21? Pick up basketball. We got Goofy, the Ice King from Adventure Time, or Jar Jar Binks.
Oh God!
I'll make my case for
I don't think we need time to think
Goofy.
so hard about that.
I'm going with Goofy, primarily because Jar Jar's antics, I could see them working like large scale. Oh, he accidentally blew a bunch of stuff up, but he doesn't seem to be lucky in the same way that Goofy is. And also, I think he's going to piss off Ice King, and Ice King's just going to be too distracted trying to do something with Jar Jar, and Goofy's just going to accidentally like slip on ice and like circle back through the hoop over and over or something. I don't know. This is just, that's the scene my brain built. TJ, tell me why I'm wrong.
Yeah, Jar Jar Binks is 6'5" with a 40-foot vertical. He's not,
but he's clumsy. He's not gonna want to make it.
You know how high Gunkins can jump for no reason?
That might make it more challenging though.
No, it doesn't.
So it's
They're
Also,
amphibians. Aren't they amphibians?
I feel like you're forgetting how clumsy Jar Jar is though.
Yes.
I don't know if he could walk a straight line to the goal.
So as soon as you said 21, I thought blackjack.
Me too. Me too. I was like,
I
yes.
immediately
I
thought
forgot that exists.
Oh,
Honestly, I
that's
totally
very-
call it
forgot.
blackjack though.
very Baptist of you, I guess. But
No, I mean I prefer Texas Hold'em. I just don't really like blackjack. Is just so straightforward. I don't know.
Anyway, I'm comfortably in the Jar Jar camp.
Okay. All right. You're going with Jar Jar. All right. Ryan.
Well, I don't know what an Ice King is.
From Adventure Time.
Oh, you're missing out.
I'm not in my 20s anymore, so I don't know what an Adventure Time is.
So back when you were 18, they
fair,
could drink
fair.
too. When you were 18.
Yes, yeah, no. But we had to make it in our tub, Will, at home. Here's the thing. Like, I am a prequels Star Wars kid through and through. Phantom Menace changed my life. To the chagrin of OG trilogy people everywhere.
Myself included.
Freaking Jar Jar Binks never appealed to me. Even as a 9-year-old, it didn't appeal to me. I was Darth Maul through and through. Get that silly little space frog out of my Star Wars, not my Star Wars. It's Goofy through and through. Goofy, I mean, have you seen The Perfect Cast? Have you seen the Goofy movie? Have you seen Goofy Movie 2, the extremely goofy movie? He is athletic as hell, man.
Yeah.
And I think in a game of 21, like, even if it's a free-for-all, if all three of them are playing at the same time, like, Goofy, he's got that cartoon probability. So even if this was, like Leah said, like, if we're playing 21, if we're, throwing down some cards, I think Goofy wins no matter what.
You're going Space Jam on us?
Also-
You're going all Space Jam on us?
Also,
Hell yeah.
hey,
Space Jam.
I know we have limited time. I don't want to spend it all on the silly question, but I do want to point out, since TJ mentioned 40-foot vertical, Ice King can fly.
That would be a travel.
No.
Fantastic. He can take his Gen Z
Anyway.
bullshit somewhere else.
Anyway, Leah.
Hi, Stuart brought me another drink. As as one who played basketball varsity, heck yes,
What?
I did.
Nice.
I know. I'm gonna go with TJ on this one and say, as soon as y'all said basketball, I was like, oh, that changes the game. Because here's the deal: he can fly. Cool. There were fast people in basketball, but like, if you're tall, even if you're flailing around, like, he can just bat you back down onto Earth. I'm just saying. So I'm going.
Until he gets
Jar
frozen
Jar-
solid. But, it's fine.
Well, yes.
Wow.
Yes. Until, the Skywalkers come and save Jar Jar or whatever. It's fine. I know I'm mixing up, so don't worry.
It's fine.
I did
All
that.
right.
Someone listening's gonna
That's
have a
why I said
conniption fit.
Will, you're on my bad list right now, and you know why. And so I'm just going to keep making the Skywalker references.
All right, let's wrap this up so we can do real podcast stuff.
Okay, I don't know why. Oh man. Okay.
I'm just going to say Josh Patterson, North Carolina.
Oh, there you go. Yep. Okay. Gotcha. Reach it loud and clear. Yes, you would think as an original Star Wars guy, trilogy guy, that I would not pick Jar Jar because yes, he annoys me. But I do think I originally thought this was a card game that he was going to play cards and frustrate the person next to him and say squeeze me all the time, and the person's like, what? And then he says hit me and gets 21. But I do think out of accident, pure comedy, George Lucas was writing this basketball storyline. Jar Jar would win because he just would what? And flip it over his head and it still go in the basket. I think just that's what would happen. Just through comedy of errors and mistakes, he's still gonna win because George Lucas wrote it.
God, you're probably right.
I'm not letting George Lucas anywhere near this basketball game. For the record.
He's the ref. George Lucas is the ref. Jar Jar's winning. No.
Well, if you had to pick teams, who are you going to pick first?
But
Right. We could
there's a
spend the
real
whole
podcast
day.
to be had here.
Okay.
So, before we get into it, on a real basic level, how do we all think that stories we share today and the sci-fi and horror genres specifically might relate to the arguments had in churches around eschatological topics? Will, you're not muted yet, so you're going first.
No, I'm gonna let Leah go first on this one because this is her jam. She did a whole panel with Leah and Ryan on this, so I'm gonna defer and then kind of see if there's anything to add to it or embellish. But yeah, Leah, take it away. Take it away. This is your
crafty teacher trick that he just did there, which is lovely. But luckily,
good old pastors
well,
manipulating the game.
I need a little bit more time to think, so I'm going to build up your ego so that you will answer for me. Anyway, so I do love horror, and that's true. And I do like sci-fi, I will say. I want to qualify that. I do think the eschatological stuff is it storming where you are? Apologies, North Carolina has been, it sounds like the world's ending. Hey, appropriate, right? Anyway, so with the horror stuff, it's interesting because I do think you have to take it by genre. And a lot of people just lump horror into one big thing. And that I don't think that's fair because we don't do that with other genres. But if you're talking about this sort of I think the stuff with the end of the world things really fits into the Mike Flanagan stuff. If you guys have seen that, that's just overtly religious stuff. So that's one genre, I think. Those kind of genres are just overtly religious. There's end of world stuff, there's all that kind of stuff. And it's just inherently in there. You get The Exorcist, you get all of that stuff. It's just religious. But then you get sort of other genres. I know we're going to go into this, so I'm not going to dig too deep into it, but I do think it's what genre you're looking at, because there's all obviously the Friday the 13th, which just happened. the sort of, going after people sort of thing. There's the sci-fi version, which Ryan and I did and talked about. Space is real scary, come to find out. So is underwater. And so I do think it's which category you go to. The gore porn stuff too, we could talk about that as well. But I think eschatology really plays into those sort of worlds because it is the fear of the thing that you can't control. And I think in the beginning, at least what we were taught in seminary, is that not only did the Bible need an ending, which I can dig into that later, but it was also that people thought Jesus was going to return real quick, and Jesus didn't return real quick. And as a result of that, if Jesus isn't going to return really quick, the world needs to end, or the world needs to be tied to Jesus returning, and that gets into millennialism and stuff like that. So I think in a lot of ways, it's this idea of the uncontrollableness of our situation. We can't control when it's going to happen. No one knows the time and the date and all this sort of stuff. And in horror, I think the very basic tenet of horror is that you can't control things. There's a loss of control throughout. And for some reason, some people find that comforting. And I'm one of those people, and we can dig into the psychology later. Yeah. But it's uncertainty and it's uncomfortableness. And I think that's the key bit of eschatological ideas of theology.
Now, with that, one other thing I find really interesting, just from like what you're pointing out too, another thing they have in common is how they're misunderstood, I think.
Yep.
Because apocalyptic literature in the Bible has a ton of different genres. Like some of it's political commentary, and some of it actually is trying to tell something about the end times, maybe. And some of it's like, hey, stop being arrogant, guys. And so you have all these different genres of apocalyptic stuff in the Bible. And this is why I don't like eschatology as a whole. And I just ruined this podcast, because eschatology is basically a study that conflates a bunch of different stories with different meanings to try to come up with a timeline. And I'm like, that's not the point. And that tends to happen with horror or sci-fi too. Like people are like, oh, horror is so that you get scared. I'm like, that's actually not the point. And a lot of sci-fi, they're like, oh, this is like about an idealistic future or just about seeing lasers blast things. I'm like, no.
And Revelation was the last book, quite famously, to be canonized, because I think into canon rather, but because people were like, what is this? Like, what does this mean? But I had a teacher, Dr. Tom Slater, who was an expert in Revelation. God bless him. That's jam. He was a New Testament scholar. And I remember asking on the first day of this class I said, why did we even include it? Because it's so confusing. It's caused such drama. What's the deal? And he goes, every story that has a beginning needs an ending. And I thought it was so being funny-ish. But I do think it's interesting to think, I wasn't at the council, but did it get included because the story needed an ending? I mean, it's a question.
It needed an omega. Well, as the resident kind of Lutheran pastor here, Luther would be proud that we're saying, should it be added to the canon? Because he kind of put it in the appendix. He really didn't like that book at all. He put it in his appendix. I like this idea of like building on the fear of like what's uncontrollable. But I would also add to that, like, it's the fear of the unknown. So space, darkness, the monster out there we don't quite know, the shark under the water, the kaiju, whatever you want to do, the murderer, the vampire, the zombie, there's this kind of fear of the unknown, and the future is unknown. So we're going to fill in the gaps of what could or could not happen. And so these stories that are told can be cautionary tales to beware, or to help you cope for whatever you face coming down the road, or what gifts you have to play into society. I don't know what my gift's going to have. I'm definitely not a hunter. I'm not that great of a cook. I guess I could grill a little bit, but like, I don't know if they need do they need chaplains in the post-apocalyptic dystopia? I don't know.
Water skills. Apparently.
Water skills, yeah, I could just surf while everybody else is on the beach fighting zombies. I don't know, but yeah, I think that fear of the unknown also in the future is unknown, and so where in the church where they're debating what does the future hold, only God holds the future, or lures us towards new possibilities in the future for our process friends. But I think, I think that's as a part of us sharing stories to help us through even through Scripture. What could we do to prepare ourselves for what's coming down the road that we don't know what that looks like?
Also, ironically, Revelation is one of my favorite books, so I'm a bad
tracks. That tracks.
Like, that's because like I'm a literary nerd, and the literary like aspects of it, like how much they make connections and like cameos, and it is the geekiest book of the Bible by far.
Definitely, it has dragons. It's dragons.
It has dragons in it. Also, pretty
dragon,
jarring
man.
ending if you're just like reading through the Bible.
But it's also batshit. Sorry for the church people, but like it doesn't. And people who are like, this is when my students say I'm a Bible believing / the Bible is easy or it's clear. Go read Revelation. Come back to me. Let's have a chat. And that's not me saying you can't be a part of a denomination that translates things in a certain way. That's why denominations exist. But Revelation is not clear. I'm sorry.
No, this is.
I like it when you say that. There's thunder in the background booming. I'm like, well, Leah, watch what you say.
Yeah, this is
watch
where,
what you say.
This is where literalism becomes very appealing because I don't want to think about what all that means. I'm just gonna take that literally. That's all gonna happen for real.
Yeah. Well, so what drives me crazy? It's the same thing like when people read Frankenstein who don't actually want to read it genuinely. They're just like, oh, monster. And I'm like, shut up. Like you read Revelation and you have all these people who clearly don't know the Bible who are like, I'm a Revelation expert and the candle represents it. And they come up with like some wild shit. And I'm like, dude, no, Ezekiel or Zechariah 3 actually tells us exactly what the candle is. And then like, here's this cool monster. And actually, that's from Daniel. And we're already told what that means. Just read the rest of the book, dude. And it infuriates me. That's all.
I think
it bothers me so much.
Welcome to being a theologian.
Yeah. I despise it.
Despise it.
That's
Oh my gosh.
All right.
Oh, God.
So we're gonna take a little bit of a detour off the stuff that I despise, and we're gonna go to a geek detour because now you guys know what we're building towards, and now it's time to build. Why do you guys like? What draws you to sci-fi or horror or sci-fi horror in Ryan's case sometimes? Because like I don't know, everybody comes for different reasons. Sometimes it is for like the lasers and the big blast, but sometimes maybe there's more to it. Maybe there's more to it. Will, why are you drawn to Star Wars?
Star Wars in particular,
or sci-fi in general? Either
how
or.
much time you got?
Either
no,
or.
it's that speculative fiction of thinking through of what could be. Now, the thing about Star Wars, it happened a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So it's not necessarily the future. It's the past. But in even movies like whether it's the zombie apocalypse or just Star Trek or sci-fi or even like the movie that just came out, Sinners. Leah, have you seen Sinners? Oh my gosh, yes.
Or of course in the theater.
Okay. Yeah. So
Will, is it any good? I haven't heard you talk about it.
No. Yeah. Well.
Yeah, I didn't get
Wait, is that a movie?
I didn't get invited on the podcast when I talked about it. So.
Oof. No, but I think if you put yourself in the story, which is what we're called to do in Scripture too, is to think about what our role would be, how would we react, what would we do in that situation, how would we respond to what's going around us. So sci-fi is the fantasy, is the adventure. Where am I in the story? But even in horror, how would I respond to what's going around me? Would I just take care of myself, or would I take care of others? How do I see myself living with community and family and relationship? Like all those things happen in those books. That's what draws me. It's the fantasy, the storytelling. We're hardwired for story as human beings, I think. And those are some of my favorite stories that are told or to think about, imagine myself being a part of.
Yeah. Ryan, you wanna go next? Like what draws you to these sci-fi horror kind of things?
Well, I mean, originally in life, Star Wars was my entrance into sci-fi, and it was, I think, the optimism, the bright lights, the exciting characters, the uniqueness, the variety of it drew it to me and drew myself to it. But now, like within the last decade, you mentioned like sci-fi horror is more like my thing. I didn't grow up. I don't have that innate like love of horror that like what Leah's talking about, like maybe more like kind of down to earth horror. A lot of the stuff I enjoy is the deep dark out there, face the unknown, what is out there kind of thing. Honestly, to echo Pete Enns from last year's beer camp, nice. When I look up at the stars, I'm scared out of my mind. And meanwhile, Ilya Dilio's like, imagine what all's out there. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. Imagine what all's out there. And I found that, people that, maybe listen to that session or were at that session in beer camp, I found that juxtaposition very compelling because I was like, oh, am I team Pete or team Ilya? I'm team Pete because when I watch like my favorite science fiction, franchise as an adult is the Alien franchise. When I look up at the stars, I think, oh my God, what is up there? Like, maybe nothing, but now like I'm drawn to it from the sense of like, it makes me think about life, destruction. Leah and I talked about this a lot in our panel last year, this idea that creation and destruction are kind of in this never-ending cycle of we create, we destroy, we create, we destroy, and then somewhere in the middle, us as created beings, us as people who are not deities, like we love to try and play God. And I find that theme within science fiction, sci-fi horror, cosmic horror, Lovecraftian horror. I find that theme incredibly compelling. Our never-ending obsession with playing God. And how that never ends well. Like it never does, but it also never stops us. I mean, guys, there are now 7 Jurassic Park movies.
Yeah.
Creating dinosaurs was always a bad idea.
7 is insane.
We need more.
Unless you're Spielberg's wallet, it was a bad idea.
No, it's so funny though. It's so funny because the same reason that they keep trying is the same reason that they keep making the movies.
You're right. You're entirely right.
Money.
Oh man,
it's very funny.
Yeah. For myself, I'm less drawn to horror. I only really am drawn to horror that makes me think about myself. If I read like Frankenstein or like watch a movie and it makes me go, "Am I the monster?" I love it. The rest of horror, I'm like, meh, I didn't need that.
You are.
Also, sci-fi. This is where I'm weirdly not Delia or Pete Ends at all, because like. It goes back to my favorite song, Passenger, the song Home. And he talks about like, when I get overwhelmed, I like to think I'm a brick in a wall that's going like from here to the ocean. And he's like, and I like to look up at the stars. I'm wondering, is something staring back at me? And for me, what draws me to sci-fi is like, maybe the story is so big that I don't need to feel anxious about my story because I'm just like a blip, you know? Like to me, that's comforting. But I understand for why a lot of people, that's terrifying. But yeah, Leah, same thing. What draws you to these?
I'm reminded about the Jurassic Park that made me giggle, Ryan, is when I was at Edinburgh, we would always have these sort of door wars with the science people. And so there's a little thing that says science, and science tells you what you can do. Humanity tells you why it might be a bad idea.
Exactly.
Yeah, perfect.
Which is true. I think for me, and Ryan and I talked about this a bit at the geek stage, is that I find a lot of the sort of formulaic, a lot of people like Christy, who is my podcast partner, Theology on the Rocks, loves formulaic shows. So she goes to sleep watching Criminal Minds. That's like her thing because it always follows the same formula. And for me, like I'm not trying to sound hipster, although it's going to come across that way, and I guess we all inherently are, is I actually get really bored with that. I don't like that formula. And maybe that's why I became a theologian, is we don't know what the heck's going on, and we're just living in this world. And so for me, horror is a place where I can go and I don't know the ending. Like Sinners will, as soon as the thing happened that was revealed, not to spoil it, was like, I'm not going to spoil it. I just said there's a revelation at some stage. I was like, what? You know, and it didn't, I know. And it still surprised me. Whereas like when I watch some shows, whether they be crime shows or, you know, whatever, Friends, some people love to watch Friends a million times. To me, it's kind of boring. And I don't really like, I want a moment where an M. Night Shyamalan moment, R.I.P. He did it. He got one good one in there. But
for a brief second, I was like, "Did he die?" And I did not know that.
No, he died. He died to me around the Signs era. He died to me.
Yeah.
As soon as they showed those aliens, and I was like, really?
Maybe not.
I liked it. I liked it.
Maybe not.
That the whole time. Really, they're real skinny. They could beat Jar Jar Binks at basketball. But yeah, I think that's the thing, is it hits a certain group of people, I think, who like to not go on a journey. They don't want to go on a journey. They want the journey blown up and exploded and a little chaos attached to it. And I think, to me, I find that super interesting. I don't want to know how it ends, you know? And we can psychoanalyze that, but...
Spoilers. You don't like spoilers.
I don't like spoilers.
Yeah, me neither.
No, I'm good. I mean, I don't care either way. Because, like, typically, when someone spoils something, I'm just so bad at interpreting what people say that I still don't expect the correct thing that happens.
That's
Joshua,
really
Darth
true.
Vader is Luke Skywalker's father.
Yeah, like, someone will
Try
tell
to
me that, and then I'll
misinterpret that.
watch it, and I'll be like, oh, they meant, like, literally his father. I thought this was going to be, like, he's a mentor kind
It's
of
like
situation.
a cool uncle
Yeah.
energy. Like,
Yeah.
yes.
So we're going to list our favorite 3 to 5 because no one here knows how to keep it short and sweet. Horror stories or sci-fi stories, starting with Joshua, so we can discuss what themes they may have in common with or what differentiates them from one another.
Coming up with favorites is hard.
You wrote the question.
Yeah, Dead Space has to be up there for me. The Dead Space story is just fantastic. I think it's sci-fi and horror, so it counts as both. Obviously, Doctor Who is one of my favorites. Star Wars is probably up there. If I got 2 more to pick, I'd probably go with Frankenstein. Frankenstein's great. G. Willow Wilson's sci-fi trilogy comics, phenomenal. So
Joshua.
I probably have to go with those 2.
You bewitch me
Recency
so
bias.
with the G. Willow Wilson reference.
Ryan and I are now going to go off and record a different podcast.
Darn right we are.
Ryan,
Yeah,
though,
right
if you
now.
had to pick 3 to 5, though, what are like, I don't know, your top from these genres?
Joshua, here, I'll give you my 3 to 5, the ones that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So, Alien is the first 2 movies are perfect.
Is that all 5?
Romulus is incredible. I can only imagine. I've been sending Leah Alien Earth stuff for months, and I cannot wait for August 12th.
We are Jack. We are Jack.
That show is going to kick so much. We all knew. The Predator franchise. I know some people consider them together. The first Predator movie is an incredible piece of action, but it's also an incredible piece of tension. To be like, what does it feel like for the hunters to be hunted? If anyone out there has not seen the Hulu show Killer of Killers, it is the lead-in to Predator Badlands. And Killer of Killers kicked so much, my butt was hurt afterwards. Other things outside of that, like John Carpenter's The Thing is exquisite cosmic horror. It is probably the best piece of cosmic horror. You could convince me to maybe put some things at 2 and 3 if we're ranking them, but the Thing is perfect. I mean, I love Star Wars. I started off watching Star Wars, renting VHSs from the library and just cycling through them. I saw Phantom when I was 9. I was the perfect age for Phantom Menace. And I love Star Wars so much. I am actually going to just be a little timely here. Jurassic Park. Like I already said it, like the concept of playing God and not learning your freaking lesson. Like the idea that capitalism and the desire for money is so intrinsically in us to put other people at risk and in harm so that we can benefit ourselves is so
like it's a predator, like it's predatory, like it's predator. It's like it hunts you down like a T-Rex and eats you.
All I'm saying is John Hammond did not have to make theme park rides out of living predators, but he did it anyway. The last one, I will actually just jump on to what Joshua said. Not only is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein incredible, the perspective of the monster discovering what humanity is and what does it actually mean to be human. Do I get to count as a human, even though I am a quote created being? But also, I highly recommend James Whale's original Frankenstein with Karloff. Boris Karloff is a rabbit trail that I will gladly go down with anybody if we got the time. Karloff is kind of like a little mental side project for me all the time. But The Bride of Frankenstein it's so good. Like that's all I can say about that
classic horror film.
And I know like someone out there's like, really, you just gave a lot of the basic girl answers for sci-fi. There's a reason why they're great, because they're great. The reason why they're classics, because they're classics.
Oh, the basic human response, if I edit it. ever so slightly.
Right.
It's a basic girl response.
Oh,
Well, he wanted to say a different word.
I
Language,
love
I know. He
when,
did.
when Leah calls him out.
Language matters. Language
This
matters.
matters.
I'm unmuted, so I can go. This is an impossible question, so it'll just be what's
True.
at the top of my head right now. Scream is my favorite all-time horror.
Yeah,
The first original Scream. And it sort of plays into the reasoning why I said at the beginning is that you had no idea. As soon as they put Drew Barrymore's face straight on huge on that poster. And I'm not even going to say this is a spoiler. It's the 90s. Come on, y'all, catch up. She dies within like the first 2 seconds of that film. Like,
Fantastic.
Then
stuff.
that I realized with this franchise, anything can happen. And you never know who the bad guy is or people are, or girly in some cases. So that would be number one for me. I do love that genre. I will say I love Jordan Peele and all that he does that I have seen. And I think Get Out was a wild ride. And if you've not seen, I don't even know how to spoil that movie. It's just a wild ride through and through. And Us as well, I would say those are my 2 favorite of his. So definitely that. I also really, really love Doctor Who as well, I will say. And for sci-fi purposes, because it was really a thing that comforted me being an expat in the UK. And also, much like Michael Fassbender, we can all take a moment of silence for David Tennant, and everything that you're feeling is valid, as Ryan said.
Yes, absolutely.
He's an amazing human in all ways. I will leave it at that. Star Wars, I was introduced to later, and of course, that's that. And I would, if we're talking about as House on Haunted Hill is a good show, but I will say if you're into the horror world, dig into the works of Shirley Jackson. She has a biography called A Haunted Life, because her life, she wrote The Haunting of Hill House, but also her life is a sad, wild ride. And it does kind of connect back to the theology of it, is that she wrote from her experiences and what she thought was horrific, but you can totally tie it back to real life stuff that probably happened in her own life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So,
I'll be fast. Like I combine sci-fi and horror. Like if you're doing separate, there's different things. Like I love to Get Out. I love Sinners. I love those horror movies, but and of course Star Wars, sci-fi. But if we're going to combine the two, then definitely Alien, Predator franchise. I also thought of like the Godzilla kaiju like horror kind of sci-fi element. This whole idea of like a monster emerging out of the sea to us that we're somewhat responsible of or for. Living on the beach and here in the ocean outside my window as a kid, I would often have nightmares of like monsters coming out of the ocean before I even saw any Godzilla film. But sometimes it could be campy and silly, but just the fact of like some big monster emerging out of the ocean to stomp cities of people freaked me out. I'll also add Event Horizon, 1997's Event Horizon, which is basically a haunted house story except on a spaceship in outer space. And man, that movie messed with me big time. And then I love the Terminator series. You know, the AI coming back, the robots taking over. That first Terminator when I was a kid, watching it too, also messed with my head a little bit. So those are the ones I would lift up in the genre.
All right. I do get a turn. Josh gets a turn. Right. So
yeah.
I'm going to make it quick. In no particular. No, I'm going to do it in order. Fallout, Star Wars, Dune, Blame by Tsutomu Nihei. Great manga. Beautiful manga. Horrifying. Mega structures. If part of the sci-fi you like is big, unbelievably huge cities and structures, that's the peak of what exists right now. And Sunshine.
Is it David Lynch Dune or New Dune?
Both. All Dune, except Brian Herbert's son. That guy can't write. That guy cannot write at all.
Fair.
Nice call. Good pull for Dune. Good pull with Dune. Yeah.
Josh, did you already go?
Yeah, I already went.
I blacked out when that happened.
I will say, because everybody else elaborated theirs. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I just want to add to, I do love David Lynch, so Twin Peaks and everything David Lynch does.
Oh, Twin Peaks is
shout
David
out
Lynch
and
deserves-
genuine RIP to him.
Twin Peaks is so good.
So good.
No, I was gonna say, since everybody else elaborated on their some, and I didn't really on mine, I will say part of why I love Invisible Kingdom with G. Willow Wilson goes back to that whole like story bigger than myself. Like, it's like, what do you do with the other? That's like a lot of what sci-fi is. You're meeting these other alien races and like, what is human? What do you do with the other? And Invisible Kingdom does this cool thing where like you meet the other and it's like, hey, this species has 7 different genders, or this species has this religious following. And ask, what do you do with the other when they're so different from you that it forces you to accept that the binary structures maybe you created for yourself just aren't real. And that's it's such a powerful writing. Good comment.
What was that movie about South Africa where the aliens came and they put them in like...
I don't know this one.
You remember they put them in these shacks and they separated them, and it was a real play on kind of what you're talking about, Josh. It was a real play on like, well, apartheid.
I want to watch
District
it now.
9.
District 9. That's it.
District 9. Yeah, that's
Good
it.
movie.
Yeah.
It's a really good
And
movie.
how you other the other person, the alien, really is the other, but then also, do it with the droids, robots, AI. I think that's a big part of the genre too. How
Or
do we
chat.
other people? Yeah, that's a big part of it. Nice.
Yeah. So, what would we say is the point of the apocalyptic literature in the Bible, Leah?
I mean, I do think that it was meant as an agent of hope. I really do. I think it's weird to hear that because it's called apocalyptic literature, but I do think it was used as a literary device to encourage people that Kristen and I have talked about this on the podcast, is that weirdly we find comfort in things ending sometimes. And I do think that both as Revelation or even Daniel, if you want to go to the Old Testament, like there are these works that say this is not all that there is. And so any given day of the week, if you're having a tough day, a lot of cult leaders have used it negatively, but a lot of people can look in that and think, oh, this isn't the end, and again, people can use that in very damaging ways, but I really think that's the purpose. It's weirdly a hope device, even though it's the end.
Yeah, a hope device. I like that. But also like the word apocalypse literally means to unveil or to reveal, right? So when I talked about with my congregation that COVID, this pandemic was apocalyptic, I wasn't talking about like it's in the world. It was just revealing what was important to people, those who wanted to hold on to power, those who wanted to lean into science, those who want to take care of their communities, those who are scared of science. It was revealing of what was deeply inside them. So I think this apocalyptic literature in scripture is revealing of the underlying reality and also the systems that are at play, whether they're oppressive or those who bring hope and salvation. So apocalyptic, with the literal meaning of that Greek word, to reveal or unveiling. These stories unveil for us what we're truly feeling, how would we respond. But in scripture, the underlying reality of what is holding these things together and what are the systems and powers that are trying to tear it down or co-opt it.
Yeah, I got to go back to my thing earlier. It's the same thing with horror, sci-fi. It's like we just conflate these stories too much. Daniel and Revelation have a really fun tie-in to, if you split Genesis up the way that I would like it to be split up, that beginning, ending with the Tower of Babel, where humanity really fell apart from God. Like the story is basically God's like, okay, guys, don't do this. And then they do it. It's like, all right, that's 1. And then he goes 2, and there's like 2.5, 2 3/4. Like God keeps giving humanity a chance. And like Tower of Babel was like, that was it. We got so full of ourselves, we departed from God. And the story of Daniel in Revelation is what? Babylon finally falling. It's the story of the Tower of Babel coming to an end, where our arrogance put into perspective of like, and both of those are political stories of like, hey, we got so full of ourselves. We have these narcissistic leaders like Nebuchadnezzar, who are, causing people to be put into prisons in El Salvador. I mean,
Golden
throwing people in
statues.
services, all this
AI
other,
golden
statues. Yeah, all this stuff, right? And it's all about the arrogance of man and narcissism in politics, and that's what the stories are about. And then you also have apocalyptic literature in Isaiah, where the Leviathan gets slain, that stands for chaos, and God's power is shown through apocalypse in these weird little like angel alien creatures, because it's like, look how powerful God really is. In your chaotic life, it's nothing to something that powerful, right? So like, just like horror, just like sci-fi, I think it depends, what story are we talking about? And usually, yeah, it's hope. Is it hope because this political, administration will one day end, or is it hope because, hey, your life is chaotic, but God's more powerful than that? Either way, I do think hope is probably a solid answer.
And I think Ryan brought that up with Jurassic Park and Alien, which is another of my favorites. I don't have, but is
Great
that the sort of, arrogance that we had, which is really the central of those genres, and how we keep doing it. As a historian, it kills me. It's like we and what does that say about humanity? And I think in many ways, apocalyptic literature is speaking to that and saying we are going to keep doing this over and over and over again. And maybe one day Jesus comes back or we die, and I know that sounds really unhopeful, but there is a hope message underneath that, because it is that this is, we can fight against that. We can push back against that. And you see that in some of these horror films is people say, this isn't actually the way that I want my life to be. And we're going to stop the cycle. Mm-hmm. Should they blow up that Jurassic Park island? Maybe, but
I think probably even.
What I'm saying is in August, when the Tycoon Jurassic World Evolution 3 comes out and I can build my own Jurassic Park and put people in danger, I'm going to do it. And it's going to be great. Can't wait, actually.
Put yourself in that story, Joshua. Put yourself in that story.
That's what
if you had the money to do the same thing in real life.
Oh, absolutely not. That's a terrible waste of money.
Surely. I'm sure you believe that.
Yeah, so one thing our sci-fi and horror fans and our eschatological scholars have in common is this tendency to argue and create factions among the different theories. Like, are you a prequel guy or a sequel guy? And then it's like, are you pre-millennial or you're amillennial? Whatever. And it's crazy because eschatology is like the source of a ton of church disputes, and yet it does sound a lot like our nerd fights. And bad eschatology is one of the leading causes for spiritual trauma. So like, it's kind of funny when you see the comparison, but it's also like, oh yeah, this is still really serious.
Right.
So, Ryan, do you think there's anything the church might be able to learn about unity from looking at like our sci-fi and horror communities and how we disagree? Because like, there's definitely some fandoms that do this better than others.
I think, with that, I think it matters, one, what kind of fans you're talking to.
Yeah.
And what kind of church people you're talking to, because sometimes if we're talking about Star Wars, for example, original trilogy people, they can be rabid. They're the nerd equivalent of the get off my lawn people. And when you're, Will Rose is a great example of this. Definitely an original trilogy guy.
Oh yeah,
but has found joy in other parts of the Star Wars universe. That's more like where I've landed, because I'll be honest, guys, I don't got time in my life to argue about fictional space people. But I think but with theology, for some reason, we think it's so categorically different. And it's like, I don't know if it really is. So eschatology was always one of those things where, especially in Bible college, I went to a really hardline conservative Baptist Bible college. And it was like, hey, if you get your eschatology wrong, basically, enjoy hell, you pagan, non-believer. How did we let you in for this long? There are the disagreements. I don't know. I just feel like the details are negligible. And that's probably bad for a lot, probably more conservatively minded people be like, well, no, they're important topics. I'm like, are they though? We've been arguing about them for so long.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I mean, even if they are important, I feel like I hear Jesus calling to us for those who disagree well on the little things will be given bigger things to disagree. If we can disagree well on Star Wars, maybe we can move our way up.
Right. You know what? That's probably true. Also, your Jesus voice sounds an awful lot like our mutual mentor, Will Rose.
Well, they do have a lot in common.
Guys.
Well, okay. So I had another observation. I'd like to pick your brain out just for a second. Because when I think of the fandoms that do this well, and of course I'm biased, but maybe as a Thor fan, you might see something similar. As a Kingdom Hearts fan, there's not a lot of dispute. It's just you see someone and they even if they like a game that you think is the dumbest one in the series, you're like, oh my God, someone else knows what I'm talking about. This is awesome. Whereas the bigger fandoms, it's I don't know, you feel like you're mainstream enough that you have the room to disagree. And I think the same thing's true with the church though. When you see the church is smaller in those areas, like when you read about it, they don't have those arguments. But now, like, we're the big guys, so now we have to argue about all these minor little details.
Yeah. Oh, gosh,
spoiled by selection.
Yeah.
Oh my. Yeah. I mean, I think for example, maybe this is in the spirit of your question, Joshua. Like, nerd culture is pop culture now. Like, science fiction and horror is pop culture. It's gone from being a corner case curiosity of the pop culture, world to, superhero movies historically just bring home bank at the box office. People build whole careers out of characters they play, all of that. So I think there's a interesting shift from being this may be an inappropriate way to say this, but if you're a nerd, in the let's say pre-80s, if you're a nerd in the pre-80s era, you are essentially a persecuted minority in the world of pop culture because you're the oddity, you're the curiosity. Similar to, prior to the moral majority gaining political, organizational, systemic power in the church world, a lot of more conservative thinking going mainstream through things like Focus on the Family, Billy Graham, all of those cultural shiftings. You have a somewhat quieter voiced, maybe a less represented minority going from being that corner case to now being in a position of power, aligning itself with, let's just say, certain political parties. Wink, wink. We all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And now you see what what the bullied now do when they've got the power and they can pull the strings. I think there's a lot of different comparisons you could do between sci-fi and horror nerd culture with current Christian, kind of mainstream culture. Is that in the spirit of your question, Joshua?
No, that's exactly kind of just, my brain was just kind of roaming in that general direction. See where your brain went, We just went on a little journey together.
Us together is definitely, I think roaming is probably the most accurate word that could be used
the kindest
for our brains.
I don't think there's a stronger version of the word to use, so yeah, I'd have to agree.
It's the Nick Polk will be happy at this. Not all who wander are lost, but sometimes you're just freaking lost.
Not all.
Sometimes you're Josh Knoll.
Man, that's true.
Oh God.
But I don't know. I feel like it's kind of, there is virulence in the fandoms if you dig deep enough. Always.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you can reconcile that fact because they're still fans of the same properties.
Yeah, I mean,
Usually.
as long as if you have a healthy adult mindset towards your fandoms, you should always be able to come back to the core common denominator of, we both derive joy from this property, this IP, this character, this, whatever. I mean, even Joshua mentioned, if this happens in the world of Thor, like, I am by no means a Thor expert. I prefer to say I'm a Thor enthusiast. And that's really how I am with comics too, as a whole, as a medium. Within the world of even Thor comics, there are, like, he is a white, blonde-haired Viking warrior. Believe it or not, guys, there are some other dudes on the internet that reinterpret Thor a different way. We've actually had people send us DMs like, "Hey, I just want to know what I'm getting into here. Like, what are you guys about?" Like, we're like, "Hey, dude, you're safe here. We're not those guys." So, like, even within our niche of a character, there is a niche. Like, it's crazy how far the maze goes. But we're just trying to be a positive influence on anybody that listens, and I think we've done a good job. I think you guys do a good job.
Yeah,
sometimes
I enjoy listening to Across the Bifrost and hearing about comics that I usually don't read because, like, I have limited time. So if it's like there's no Captain America, I'm like, do I want to?
Which, by the way, Joshua, there's brand new Captain America run launching this summer. You need to get on board with that.
Yeah. Oh, man, no, so cool. Well, so also to kind of go back a little bit, I also wonder how much age has to do with it. Because, like, the age of a fandom, if you will. Because once we've had Star Wars for so long, I will admit, people who are like, I only like the sequel trilogy, I do have a hard time being like, that's the same thing as a Star Wars fan. You know, I'm like, it's like, you're a sequel Star Wars fan. That's not exactly the same thing.
That's why I said usually earlier.
Yeah. Well, I think it is, though, because like when you sit with something so long and then something new comes out and it kind of like undermines that, you're like, is that the same thing? And I feel like a lot of Christians are doing the same thing now. And we've always done that. We're like, these are our things. This is what we believe. And then someone's like, what if we were wrong about homosexuality or, you know, same-sex marriage? And people are like, that's not Christianity. That's new. And I feel like, we do the same thing a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
I wonder if the abolitionists and the Anabaptists fighting for slavery to be abolished would say the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. They were like, Jane Foster can't be Thor. Like, chill, dude.
Oh, those guys, Josh, those are unwashed basement folk.
Yeah.
And I don't associate.
Well, Ryan just called Anabaptist unwashed basement folk in my mind. So we'll move on from
probably not the first person.
Before the peace tradition Anabaptists come after me on the internet, I would just like to say there's the church that I've been attending somewhat regularly with Kim and our kids, and my parents go there, is a Mennonite community of mostly like 70s people in their 70s and 80s, and they might be the most peace-loving people I've ever met. We're celebrating the history of Anabaptism this year, and that honestly, it is incredible to learn about like parts of the church's history that I did not know about, and I definitely wasn't taught at my conservative Baptist college.
Yeah,
no, that is pretty
cool. But if you wanted to maybe hear some more of that, maybe pick his brain a little bit, then there's one really easy way to do that, but there's one really cool way to do that, and that's going to be Theology Beer Camp.
Yeah. Yeah.
You bet your bottom dollar.
Yeah.
So, Leah, what practical lessons can we learn from all of these stories? And I need specific examples from every franchise that has been mentioned.
Every Bible.
You brought me on here and gave me a time limit, which was really your first mistake.
No, but really, I mean, biblical ones.
Well, don't go to Camp Crystal Lake. That's a very practical one.
That's a good
one.
Maybe
anything named Crystal or Lake, don't go
I was going to say stay away from Elm Street if at all possible. That's actually a pretty easy. Those are two easy ones to avoid. Disaster. Practically speaking, what can we take from horror films? I mean, when I watch the ones that I speak of that I love the most, it really is this idea that the people in the story who you're rooting for are rising above their circumstance. And I think there is something inherently attractive to me about that. And I know we can go in the background, although you all know it at this stage, about growing up where I did and how I did. But I do think whether it's coming together to fight a common enemy, which is a very common thing in sci-fi as well, or simply rising above, all of the stuff that's created a world that is inherently selfish or terrible, those are the ones that I really like, or freeing off or getting oppression out the window or whatever. So anyway, next time bring me on and go for 2 hours and it'll be fine.
Yeah. For those who are wondering, we asked her because she is a practical theologian who writes books about practical theology.
Mm-hmm. I will say I do have books out about that, and I've just published one on COVID and how we reacted in COVID. And so COVID in itself was a little bit of a lived-in horror, right? Mm-hmm. A lived-in horror film in itself, and how we reacted, honestly, is kind of what the book is about. And Will quite rightly has messaged me about, let's write one that's like about what the good guys did.
I got some good stories. I got some good news stories.
This is the horror book. It's about the bad stories.
Yeah. We'll write the sci-fi version.
Right.
But I think, it is, people are super able to rise above the stuff that's happening around them. And I think horror films really show that.
Yeah. So if you're listening, don't forget to check out Theology Beer Camp. We would love to see you there. Also, Leah, where can we find your new book?
So you can find my new book Bad Theology and COVID's Paul Grave McMillan send me a message. Bad Theology in a Time of Oppression in the Name of God is on SCM Press and also Amazon, and you're good to go there. I have a new book coming out called, I don't have a title, but it'll be sexy, and Bad Theology will be in it. And it's about conversion therapy. It's with Bloomsbury Press. And so I'm doing a lot of ethnographical stuff with people who survived conversion therapy. So
I heard a lot about that one. Do you know about like the release date frame? Is there like a...
For the conversion therapy book?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's due next September, she says, as she slowly falls to the floor.
Yeah.
And probably it tends to be about 4 months after when it's all said and done. Well, with the good, I mean, I don't want to like brag, but if you're doing it with an academic publisher, they know what they're doing. They've got their stuff right.
Cool.
Early 2026 is what I'm hearing.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do the math for me, because I sure don't
well,
want
we need to have you back on to talk about that when the date comes closer too.
That would be great.
I do want to plug that.
Love you guys.
Yeah. So one thing we always do, because I forgot it was my part, we do like to ask everybody for practical application. Kind of more of like around church unity specifically. Like, what is something our listeners could stop and do right now that would help better engender unity in the church? That's how I'm supposed to word this question. Do you have any ideas of like what's something people could stop and do right now?
I think, for me personally, I think to see you as being a part of a story, not only just your own story, but a part of other people's story too. You have an effect on other people. So if I meet somebody new, I'm already impacting their story, have an influence on them and them on me. So to see us as players and characters in each other's story. So whether it's in the scripture or whether it's in the stories that we like to go to the movies, the big screen or stream on our TVs, they're all there to help us process our own story. And so I think we see ourselves as each other in our own stories. I think that can make an impact. And I don't want to be the villain in my own story. I don't want to be the villain in somebody else's story. How can I help them thrive in their own story? I think is something to always keep in mind when you're interacting with other people and communities.
So write a story about someone you met.
Yeah. So what changes in the world around us if everyone just does that?
Man, I think just the whole, I don't want to be the bad guy in somebody else's story. Yeah, I really don't. Like, if I made somebody mad today, there's listening to this, or you misinterpret something I said, I'm really sorry. I don't want to be the bad guy in your story. I really don't.
Right. We all just want to be liked by everybody, really.
I think realistically, we're all at some point the bad guy in somebody's story. So.
Yeah, it's true. So right.
I'm really good at it.
I think. Do you want me to go, or y'all can go?
Yes, please.
For me, I think it's making people within the church, and not even within the church, actually, everyone in your sphere, feel good about the things that they do well. And I that sounds really simple, but as someone who felt quite ostracized by the church at different points in my life, I think it's really important to see what people are trying to bring to you, again, in friendship, relationships, church life, and to really encourage that. If it's coming from a place, someone wants to read a scripture, or someone wants to go on a hike with you, or someone wants to, whatever it may be, is seeing people and where they're coming from. And this is really coming from me dating an introvert. It's such a different world. I just came into, this is clearly coming across, I come into the world guns a-blazing, and I'm just like firing it all, whatever. And I'm like, if you're my friend, you're my friend, and all of you are my friends. And actually dating a geeky introvert has really helped me see that sometimes you have to see the quiet ones in the corner and know that they also have a whole lot that's going on. You just got to find their thing. And so I think with the church especially, I think we neglect that because we get really in a cycle of just keeping the wheels rolling, and we don't see people as individuals.
Mm-hmm. I want to say, read Sci-Fi. I genuinely think if more people in the church read Sci-Fi, we'd have better church unity, because it makes you think of the other in situations that you just can't deny their existence. Like, that's part of the whole point of the story.
I agree with that. So,
nice.
Before we wrap up, we like to do what we call our God moment, and we'll just take a moment to share where everyone saw God recently, whether it be a moment of worship or a challenge or a blessing or a curse or whatever it is that God has put in front of you recently. I always make Joshua go first. So, Joshua, do you have a God moment for us this week?
Yeah, I'll go sweet, simple, easy. There are several moments all combined where I'm just spending more time on my porch. Yeah.
That's
Got
real.
to read a little bit earlier today and drink some orangeade. And the other day, me and my wife played a card game just sitting on the porch outside. And, just those little
21?
moments of like, hey, I can be outside and appreciate life.
You play blackjack 21?
No, actually, it was a Star Wars card game.
Oh,
It's crazy.
Sabac or?
yeah. I was
It
supposed to
was
say
it was like a word game. Like you had to like guess
Oh.
what the word was based on a bunch of random little images on there.
fun.
That is fun.
Yeah.
So, I'll go next. Mine, it was recently Father's Day. I don't know when this episode comes out, but
Me
if
neither.
you're listening to it, now you know when we recorded it. And I worked on Father's Day, and I just thought it was, when I was there, it was interesting to notice that none of the mothers worked on Mother's Day, but all the fathers worked on Father's Day.
Mhm.
I don't know what's up with that. But then it really was like we were expecting it to be slow, and it wasn't. And there were just so many people who wanted to bring their dad to Chipotle on Father's Day. And at first I was really annoyed. It was supposed to be an easy day.
I did have a very slow day.
Awesome. That's so good for you. But then it was nice to be part of everyone's great Father's Day.
Yeah.
Because that's really the part that I like about my job. Specifically Father's Day. I wait a very long time to get satisfaction
The
out of
rest
my
of the
job.
year, nah. Yeah.
But it was really awesome to, help a lot of people have a good Father's Day. A way that I never would have figured would be a good Father's Day.
Mhm.
So, Will, do you have a God moment for us?
Yeah, I not too long ago, I don't know when this is going to come out, but I was able to make a trip to Hawaii, and I was actually in the ranch in the place where they filmed some Jurassic Park and Jurassic World stuff. So it was pretty cool to see that valley and ranch, and
That is cool.
tree where they hide behind, and the all the dinosaurs run and jump over that. I saw the actual little tree where that was and got our
Nice.
picture next to it. So that was pretty cool. So call back to Jurassic Park World movies. And in this episode, I was able to see the spot where they filmed some of it, and that was pretty fun. Gorgeous.
Nice.
We took my mom and who has dementia, and she doesn't remember the whole thing, but she remembers parts of it. And while we were in that ranch, it brought her to tears many times being there because of how beautiful it was, and made it all worth it. God moment.
Yeah, that is beautiful. All right, Leah, take us home. Do you have a God moment for us?
Yeah. So TJ, mine's kind of related to yours, actually. It really is. And I will say gender roles can work for us and against us. Reply your Father's Day working. And certainly those it can be reverse misogyny in many ways. But so I have started working at a bar down the road on Saturdays.
Nice.
And I will say I don't need to, but I've started doing it, and it's the most fun. It's how I knew I was like, that's pernicious. Well, I know what that is. It's a whole other thing, and I would totally recommend it because we can get, I'm teaching still, I'm preaching, I'm this fancy academic, I write books, but we forget a lot, I think. And so my God moment is from the bar. Is just, there was one moment where I had not a crowd, but like 5 or 6 people who I was just chatting to. And honestly, it's the most ministry I've not ever done, but I've done in a long while.
Mm-hmm.
And just
That's so good.
Yeah.
getting
I would
Patterson
say-
talks about the same thing.
I think
Yeah,
5 or 6
it's-
is a small crowd. I think that counts.
Yeah, like it was great. And we were talking, like the one guy was telling me about going back to school, and another guy was, talking to me about Georgia football. And then,
Nice.
someone else was talking to me about what I teach. And I think it was just this thing of like, it probably was like a little mini beer camp, if you want to segue into that. It's like, it put, people are always like, go touch grass.
Yeah.
It was my go touch grass moment, and it was great.
Dude, I want to go to Leah's cantina. I will go to that cantina. I
Honestly,
will.
I'm close enough that I could probably.
Yeah, please let us know where it is. I
probably
just want to crash it
stop by.
one Saturday night. I'll take a road trip.
Note a company store. It's an old mill house in
Dude.
North Charlotte.
Sweet.
I want to go.
Sweet. Yeah. I'm just gonna put the link down in the show notes for all of Leah's books. So if you guys want to follow Dr. Leah Robinson, because I feel like I was too casual and excited to get into the fun bits earlier, but
I
it'll be there, I
wasn't
promise.
offended at all, Josh. Don't worry. Or you can come drink with me at the bar too.
I
Dude,
want to
I'm
do
going
that
to do a
also.
house blessing
That's
at
my
Joshua's
plan.
house, and then we're going to go to your bar.
True. Good plan.
Yeah.
Perfect plan.
Yeah, that's what we're going to do.
So, if you like this episode, please consider sharing it with a friend, share it with an enemy, share it with your cousins. Share with your cousins.
Especially your cousins.
Especially your cousins. Rate and review the show on Podchaser or Apple Podcast or Spotify, wherever you're listening. It really helps out a lot. Manipulate the algorithm. We love manipulation.
That's true. That's what my pastor's taught
Official
me this episode
stance.
Specifically.
Good part for church unity.
Hey, also check out other shows in the Anazal Podcast Network. This can be cross-posted to Systematic Geekology. Will, myself, and TJ are all part of that show as well, so that's a lot of fun. Listen to The Homily if you want to hear more of Will, or Be Living Water if you want to hear more of me. Those rare times I remember to do it.
We hope you enjoyed it. Next week, we'll be talking with Beth Allison Barr about her most recent book, Becoming the Pastor's Wife, How Marriage Replaced Ordination as a Woman's Path to Ministry, and how the idea of unity has been used to silence many female voices from speaking up in the church. Then we will be speaking with Josh Patterson about some backlash he received about a podcast he shared in a Christian group and how we hope our own groups might handle similar situations better. After that, we'll be speaking with Jonathan Mackney, an Anglican autism researcher, about his work with faith and those on the spectrum. Finally, at the end of season 1, Francis Chan will be on the show. It is
But he doesn't know
official.
about it.
No one has started the petition yet.
He might never know about it. I'll be surprised even to him. He'll be like,
And
y'all were recording
5 years
this?
later, 5 years later, you're still in season 1. That's what I love.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It going strong.
Going strong, season 1.
Thank you for listening to the Whole Church Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, you can always sponsor our efforts to educate and unite the church on Captivate, Patreon, or Apple Podcast. If you're not into the subscription thing, again, you can leave a one-time tip on our Captivate website down below in the description notes. Thank you again, and please come back next week.